A closer look at Jin Ping Mei Chapter 77. The career of a goddess was originally a dream. Thanks to Helen Keller, there is a proposition composition during the reading stage, if you only have 3 days left to live. It is not difficult to get high scores. It is nothing more than seeing the vast world, making up for past debts, being grateful to family members, and accompanying each other. In the final analysis, it means working harder to love the world. But most people don't have time to say goodbye to the world. This is the world's misfortune, and it may not be the world's luck. We have no way of imagining what we would release in the last 3 days if there really was a countdown to death in life. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's violence, maybe it's love, like those utopias that we still believe in even if they are shattered. More often than not, it's like Pandora's box. Even if there are serious disasters, there is also a glimmer of hope. The countdown to Simon King's life has begun. Fortunately or unfortunately, he doesn't know it. He is still busy and passionate, walking between power and beauty. The autumn wind in officialdom is still indispensable. And in Chen, who appeared with Kai Zhuangyuan in Chapter 36, is here again. At this time, he was already a doctor in the Du Shui division, together with the counselor Wang Boyan and the military commander Lei Qiyuan. He came to take advantage of the situation and use Simon King's house to entertain Zhao Dayan, the former Zhejiang chief minister, who was newly promoted to the Dali Temple. Over and over again, this banquet was not a political honor like the banquet hosted by the ministers to Huang Taiwei, nor was it comparable to the banquet hosted by the Song dynasty censor to entertain the governor. Not to mention that the three of them had pulled 3 tails of silver together, and it was not related to Zhejiang. Fu Yin, however, before leaving, Lei Qiyuan pointed out that he had let go of Huang Xi's brother-in-law's descendant Wensheng as a favor, and he was considered an upright official with a strong sense of contract. Power is wealth, don't you see? Simon King was just controlling the government in the past. And he was relieved after watching Heiju accept a piece of snowflake silver. Now, Simon King is the government himself. Lao Ju, why are you bothering to send gifts? I won't accept it. If anyone bullies you, just say it and let me vent your anger. If the county government sends you on an errand, I will tell you, fatherly. A note. This warm entrustment is also the daily routine of Jin Yi after having the right to do so. Power is also medicine. Walking in the snow to visit the moon, bringing water to meet your lover. Everything is fragrant and charming. When I went to visit Sister Gui in the snow, I faced Meng Haoran's dream of walking in the snow to find plum blossoms. I was so angry that I got on my horse and went home in the heavy snow. And I also had the warmth of reconciling with Yunyang on a snowy night. Nowadays, walking in the snow is not comparable to that of the past. Zheng Aiyu, with a lingering and coquettish attitude, instructs Simon King to have an affair with Wang Sangwen's mother, and opens up to him the glorious but stale home of meritorious service. Wang Sangwaner became his godson and changed his nickname from Sangwen to Xiaoshuan. So, what if the brocade screen next to Zheng Aiyu's bed was inscribed with Wang Sangwen's poem? A godfather can be generous, let alone such a godson with a glorious ancestor. Simon King, who slept with Wang Sangwen's mother, missed Wang Sangwen's wife, and slept with Zheng Aiyu, unexpectedly took the time to fall in love with Bisi Niang. It's a bit sudden. Not surprising when you think about it. Simon King loves a mature woman. The 32-year-old Bisi is somewhat like a girl who has passed the exams for everyone in the Jia family. She has gone through many battles and exudes sexual temptation from the inside out. Simon King naturally wanted to try it. The two of them were close to each other, so it was considered a secret, but there were always surprises. The tryst and fooling round was accidentally revealed by Qin Tong, a young man with a weak head. When Qin Tong asked Simon King to greet Chui Ben, he couldn't find him anywhere. There is none at Yunyang's place. I have looked in every room, garden, and study room, but there is none. The piano boy raised his voice at the front door and said, "Don't worry about killing me. I don't know where my father has gone. I can't find him in vain. He came and disappeared in broad daylight. Of course Dad is not missing. He is just fooling around with Mrs. Bisi at the front of the door." The weak piano boy managed to escape a beating. There was nothing he could do about it. The news brought by Chui Ben made Simon King so happy. Mao King prepared a daughter from 1,000 households for him. Flowers are like faces, jade is like flesh, stars are like eyes, moons are like eyebrows, waist is like willows, socks are like hooks, and to feet are just 3 inches tall. The end has the appearance of a geese sinking under the sun, a leopard shy of the flowers when the moon is closed. There are 3,000 small songs and 800 big songs in my belly. So desirable. Simon King was full of joy. It's okay if you come a little later on the boat. Why don't you bother him with clothes, makeup and acupuncture? Are you worried about my family? It's a pity that the Wuxian goddess was originally a dream, after all. He couldn't wait for this daughter of 1,000 households. His life is full of flowers, but in fact, farewell songs are heard everywhere. Zhang Juran went to Beijing for an examination and asked Simon King to borrow his suitcase and felt shirt. He Ju came to thank his brother He for his affairs. Meng Yulu's ex-husband's Aunt Miss Young passed away. Jia Qian, whose family members moved to the capital. Every farewell is the end of a phase, the end of a relationship. Zhang Juran had discussed marriage with Meng Yulu, and Simon King's marriage to Meng Yulu was fully supported by Miss Young. He Ju had covered up Wu Da's death, and Wu Er was still on the road to exile. The Jia family's backstage in the capital was not strong enough, but the fluctuations in the capital never stop. There are always people climbing to the top, and there are always people who are declining in their glory. There are always people who say goodbye slowly, and there are always people who are reluctant to make a sudden curtain call. What fate takes back is always what he gives. A closer look at Chapter 78 of Jin Ping Mei, Simon King's 12 Days of Spring Festival. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, Simon King got up early and wore his crown in bright red. He burned paper in the sky and on the ground, ate snacks, prepared his horse, and went off to pay homage and celebrate the festival. Near noon, Simon King went to the county to pay homage to someone. Just as he got off his horse, Wang Sangwaner came to pay homage. Since he was his godson, he went to the backyard to pay homage to the moon goddess. He came out to sit in the front hall and had just had a cup of wine. He Qian, who came, worship, and soon after, Inspector Sheng, Commander Yun, and Kiao Da, who all came. By evening, Simon King was already half drunk. Rested all night in Yun Young's room. On this day, Simon King was either visiting or accompanying people. On the second day of the second lunar month, Simon King continued to go out to celebrate the festival in the morning and return home in the evening. This means that Simon King spends the whole day socializing outside. Zhang Zhupo began to unswervingly badmouth Simon King, but his cuteness was also in this unswervingness. When a man likes to call a woman by her nickname, it can be considered a little bit of fun. Simon King called Bai Xini Yangzi by her nickname. Subconsciously, perhaps he wanted to return the woman he already belonged to her factory mode when she was in the boudoir. But this is destined to be self-hypnosis. Simon King was soon slapped in the face, and Lady Bai Si slept with her ally Diane again at night. On the morning of the third day of the third year of junior high school, Simon King went out to visit people. He went home early that day. After returning home, Wu Daoist official of the Jade Emperor Temple, the presiding officer of the temple, was not a pure cultivator, came to pay homage and stayed to sit and drink in the Simon King Hall. After Wu Daoguan left, Simon King wanted to visit Mr. Lin. Simon King's time was almost filled with social activities, and even if he had a little spare time, he would take the initiative to make up for it. At this time, he was still like a top, refusing to stop and rest. A break. The visit to Mrs. Lin was partly due to the need for human relations, and partly because I wanted to have a private meeting with Mrs. Lin, but Mrs. Lin had better plans than him and sent a message early in the morning asking him to go on the 6th day of the lunar month. Did he really say that? Simon King's tone was a little unbelievable. Lin was not convinced. His fighting ability is so strong. Why don't you want to meet him earlier? At this point, both Simon King and Bao Yu are as confident or arrogant as ordinary men. Simon King thinks that the Lin family has been conquered, and Bao Yu thinks that King Wen must have called his name when she died. As soon as Simon King sat down in Yunyang's room, the relationship network he had built meant that he would not have a moment to rest. Uncle Wu came in official uniform. Uncle Wu was very grateful for Simon King's support and would kowtow when he saw Simon King. They were still setting up a banquet to have wine, and the two of them were discussing how to technically make money from the official position of Uncle Wu. The people in Jin Ping Mei have no other purpose in becoming officials. They just want to get rich, rested all night in the Golden Lotus Room. I think Jin Lian will not let him go. On the morning of the 4th day of the Lunar New Year, Simon King went to the Yamen to open seals, upgrade the hall to draw the seals, and distribute official matters. That is to say, he started to go to work. I also received a post from Yun Lizhou inviting me to have official wine. On the 5th day of the lunar month, Simon King took Earl Ying and Uncle Wu to go to Yunli's appointment and return home at night. He Qianhu's wife, Lan, sent a message inviting sisters Wu Yunyang to have a drink. On the 6th day of the lunar month, Wu Yunyang led all the sisters to He Qianhu's house for a drink. Simon King checked out his clothes and hats and went to meet Mr. Lin. Unlike Lady Bai, who went straight to the topic, Simon King and Lin had been brewing for quite some time. If you talk for a long time, you will be harmonious and affectionate. If you drink for a long time, your eyes will be troubled and your mind will wander. Simon King said, I will fight this woman with peace of mind. It seemed that he had been preparing for this day for the past 2 days. I didn't see him with anyone, and now he had already taken Humung's medicinal wine in his stomach. When the dashing Simon King is with a woman, some of his thoughts are really funny. The poem the author uses to describe them as Zhao Hai and Zhao Zhuang. In the autumn scenery, beating the sky and beating drums in the bright moon, Simon King also has a hobby. He likes to burn incense on women. Of course, he did not let Lin go this time. The strange thing is that women seem to be very interested in his hobby and are willing to make a human-shaped incense burner. Simon King invited Mrs. Lin and her daughter-in-law to his house on the 12th to see the lanterns, and Mrs. Lin agreed. Simon King was full of joy, and this was probably his last full of joy. In this joy, there is the joy of meeting Huang. Isn't it just to make an appointment with Huang after taking such a long time? Because they were full of joy, Simon King and Lin drank nostalgically and did not take their horses home until the second watch. At this time, Yunyang, Yulu, and Jinlian were all in Yunyang's room. Simon King came back and chatted with them. First, Yunyang sighed that Mrs. He Qianhu was beautiful and rich, and then asked who would arrange to look after Yun Lishu's house tomorrow. She waited for Simon King or someone present to say Sun Zue's name. Simon King meant that everyone should go and take a walk. Let them go. Sun Zue also went, but Yunyang had already had an idea. Thinking about Simon King is embarrassing enough. Sometimes he wants a bowl of water to be smooth, and sometimes he has to take care of Yunyang's face. Then they talked about the list of people to be invited to the Lantern Festival. Others were okay. Yunyang felt that Lin would definitely not come. How did she know that Simon King had already made an agreement with Lin in bed? She also said that no one would set off fireworks this year. Jin Lian he deliberately leaked the news that Bai Si Niang could do it, but neither Yunyang nor Yulu paid attention. Yunyang also said that she didn't want to go to Yunli to keep her house. Yulu said it was okay. Every time Yunyang didn't want to go out, Yulu was there to encourage her. Yulu might be bored even at home, but her mood is not easy for others to detect. Of course, mixed in with these little thoughts was the first time Simon King revealed to his wife and concubines that he had pain in his waist and legs. Yunyang suggested that he take medicine quickly. He said, "It doesn't matter. It's up to him." Perhaps because the pain was severe, I went to Sun Zui's room at night and asked her to beat her legs and pinch her body for half the night. This night was a rare warm scene in the Simon King family. Perhaps the author is merciful, because the storm is about to come, and the storm is about to begin. On the morning of the 7th day of the 7th lunar month, Earl Ying came to borrow clothes and jewelry from his wife. Simon King mentioned the pain in his legs. "I don't know why I drank too much in the past 2 days, but my waist hurts. I am too lazy to move." When the Earl advised him to avoid drinking, Simon King said, "Who is willing to let you go during this festival? How can you avoid it?" Just as he was talking, Heju came to post the post. Heju is the author, because Wu Da, the two of them got in touch with each other. The world of human relationships in China is so wonderful, like the outstretched tendrils of a vine. Whenever possible, you have to catch up. If you catch up, it will be a different story. What's funny is that Heju didn't know Count Ying and Uncle Wu at all and had never dated each other. He only knew that Simon King had close contacts with Count Ying and Uncle Wu, so he wrote 3 posts and sent them to Simon's house. The other 2 people's posts asked Simon Mansion to go round. Earl Ying seemed to have never seen Heju do this kind of thing. He just said that he had no contact, so Simon King thoughtfully prepared a parley for Earl Ying. When Yun Yang and others went to Yun Li Shu's house, Simon King ordered that no matter who it was, just say that I am not here at this time. Simon King had no choice but to press the pause button because his waist and legs hurt so much that he also wanted to take a rest. It was just too late. Went to Li Pingera's room and prepared to take a life-extending pill with human milk. However, I didn't see him taking the medicine, and he found Ryer again in the blink of an eye. He burned 3 sticks of incense on Ryer and told Ryer that it was Zhang Wang's wife who belonged to him today, Simon King. It's funny. This idea should be the same as the nickname of Bai Si Niangzi, but why not teach Lin such words? This may be because Wang Zhaoxuan's status is above him, and Bai Si and Zhang Wang are below him. It feels like he can control Bai Si and Zhang Wang, but not Wang Zhaoxuan. When Yun Yang went home in the evening, she mentioned that Yun Lisha's wife was also pregnant, and that the 2 families might become in-laws. Simon King laughed when she heard this. When it comes to the prospects of his children, Simon King is no different from ordinary fathers. On the 8th day of the lunar month, Simon King got up early and went to the Yamen. This day was Pan Jinlian's birthday. Before Simon King left, he asked the boy to take out the lamp, clean it, wipe it clean, and hang it everywhere. Simon King is still very concerned about Jinlian. Then Grandma Pan came without the money for the sedan chair. Grandma Pan really expected her daughter, who was in charge of the account, to pay for her. In the middle, Yun Yang also said to Pan Jinlian, "You can write it on the account," but Jinlian refused to pay, and the sedan bearer refused. He was in a hurry to leave, seeing that it was nothing. Yulu took out a penny and sent the sedan bearer away. The goodness of Yulu is shown in such small things. Zhang Zhubo criticizes Jinlian for being unfilial, but I think Jinlian just wants her mother to remember not to come to Simon Mansion if she has no money. I feel that Jinlian's behavior is similar to that of a middle school student who wants to save face and refuses when his poor parents come to school to deliver things. It's like coming out to meet each other. There is the embarrassment of being afraid of being looked down upon by others. And there is also the grievance and anger of not being able to express your regrets when everyone is so good but you are the only one who is not good. Because of this, Pan Jinlian tried her best to be favored and relied on her ability to make a living. And this also made her the last snowflake that led to Simon King's death. In the evening, Simon King rested in the Golden Lotus room, and Grandma Pan went to Li Pinger again. Ryer's comfort was a little provocative, which was obvious. Jinlian, who was usually domineering and strong-willed, was accused by her mother. How could she not bear to watch this excitement? Chumai was the one who really defended Jinlian. She said that Simon King was rich, but Jinlian didn't take a look at it. If you want to buy flowers, you should do it in a fair and just way. And don't hide things and make others look down on you. If you don't know her, why are you talking about people with your mouth open? Chunmei's words clearly show Chunmei's understanding and protection of Jinlian. It means that Jinlian and Chunmei have similar temperaments. Only in this way, after Simon King's death, Chunmei's strong support for Jinlian can stand. The 9th day of the lunar month is Golden Lotus's birthday. Mr. Fu, Mr. Gan, Mrs. Bai, Chu Weiben's wife, Sister Duan, Wu Shenshen's wife, third sister Zheng and Wu Jinzi came to congratulate. Looking at the excitement, there are actually no important people attending. And no matter how favored she is still a concubine. Simon King made an appointment with Uncle Wu and Count Ying to go to He Qian's house to keep the appointment, while Zhou Xiaobai drank at the same table. Zhou Xiaobai showed up frequently and served as Zhang Ben for Chunmei's home after Simon King's death. On the 10th day of the lunar month, Nying discussed posting a post to prepare for the Lantern Festival on the 12th. Simon King sent Diane to send 2 invitations, one to invite Mrs. Lin and the other to Mrs. Huang, Wang Sangwen's wife. He also arranged for the singer in the courtyard in Shaoyuer. It happened that Ben Si came back from a business trip, so he asked Ben Si to be at the gardener's office. The family built to fireworks. Simon King also asked Uncle Wu to open a shop to sell silk and satin. In other words, Simon King not only supported Uncle Wu, but also brought Uncle Wu to make a fortune together. He was still willing to actively help Yunyang's family, but I wonder if Yunyang felt this. On this day, there was another very important thing. That is, Earl Ying brought Li San to discuss a big deal, amounting to up to 10,000 taels of silver. This was our profession, so Simon King certainly refused to let go of the opportunity. The key point of this transaction was official news. Simon King did not realize that this was a problem. On the same day, he sealed 12 leaves of gold in a handkerchief and sent Lai Ju and Chen Hong to handle the mission. Notice that he sent Lai Ju. On the 11th, Ju, Chen Hong and Li San hired Chang Xingshou to go to Yanzhou Mansion. This day is the only description in the novel in this sentence. I don't think there are any important events in Ximensing. The pace of Simon King's life has obviously slowed down, which is obviously different from the busy days before the Spring Festival when visiting and accompanying people. 12 Simon King's family invites all the guests they usually communicate with to have a drink. Wang Huang's family was the most active and sent a boy to pick out a suitcase. Early women of some status always bring suitcases with them when they go out so they can change clothes at any time. Mrs. He Qian, who changed into 2 sets of clothes at Simon's house. Zhou Xiaobai's wife had an eye disease and was unable to come. This paved the way for Chen Mai to be favored later. Madame Jing Tongji, Madame Zhang Tuanlian, Madame Yan Commander, Bing Qiao's mother-in-law, Kui's mother-in-law, Aunt Wu and Aunt Meng all arrived first. Those with status, such as Mrs. Lin and Mrs. He Qian, who came later. Lin went to the appointment alone, and Simon King couldn't help but ask, where is the wife of the 3 officials? No matter what reason Lin gave, it was a fact that Huang didn't come. You can imagine Simon King's disappointment. Unexpectedly, Simon King saw the late arrival of the mulberry elm trees in the east corner, and his soul flew into the sky, and his soul dispersed into the sky. When he saw her at a close distance, Simon King felt as if the jade trees in the Qiang forest were coming to earth. The god which descends from the mountain. The author describes Lan's family as better than flowers to explain language, better than jade to create fragrance. In a trance, returning to a dream of red mansions, this Lan family seems to be a fusion of Shiren and Daiyu, so gentle and delicate. This way of writing is like the story about Zhu Baokan in A Dream of Red Mansions, whose beauty temporarily surpassed all the people in the Grand View Garden. This also means that beautiful people are constantly emerging. No matter how rich you are and how strong your desire to conquer, you cannot exhaust them all. Bao Yu understood this, but Simon King did not wake up until his death. Compared with Simon King's excitement at seeing Lan Shi, his physical decline was obvious. Before it was time to wake up, Simon King dozed off at the table. Even though he was already so lazy, he still didn't give up his pleasures. When he saw Lai Ju's wife, Simon King had been at ease with her for a long time. He immediately hugged her. These are the 12 days of the Spring Festival in Ximensing. Throughout the Spring Festival, there were people Simon King wanted to contact, and there were people who wanted to contact him. And the banquet continued. As big as the net is spread, there will be as many entertainments as possible. Simon King had sex with women during the day and also had sex with women at night. There were too many women he was thinking about. The author jumps out of the narrative at the end of this chapter and has a discussion. He says, the bright moon is not always full, and the colorful clouds are easy to disperse. Extreme happiness can lead to sadness, and failure to achieve extreme peace is a natural principle. Simon King only knows how to fight for fame and wealth, and indulges in extravagance and lewdness. Little does he know that the evil ways of heaven are evil, ghosts are chasing him, and death is imminent. He severely criticized Simon King for not knowing how to restrain himself. because he loved him deeply and hated him even more. And he also had the original intention of the novel to educate. However, as an ordinary reader, after watching Water Margin, you will feel that Simon King's death is more than justified, and that Wu Song is a hero. But when watching Jin Ping Mei, you watch him build a tall building, entertain guests, and then watch his building collapse. And you think of all his efforts, various management, and all kinds of thoughts, as well as some of his sometimes ridiculous thoughts, will have an indescribable feeling, which will give rise to a lot of sadness. Of course, I don't like the sequel to Dream of Red Mansions, but there is one sentence that left a deep impression on me. That is, I only drink 1 ladle of water from 3,000. 1 scoop is enough. Don't be greedy for too much. A closer look at Chapter 79 of Jin Ping Mei, The Death of Simon King. My inner feeling when reading the chapter about Simon King's death is very strange. There is an indescribable feeling of loss, and there is a kind of lump in the throat that I don't know how to describe. It's that kind of character. How could he die just because he said he was dead? How could he take his last breaths like this? This time, everything seemed normal. Simon King still lived a life of excessive lust. After peeping at the beautiful Lan family last time, he casually dragged Jorah's wife to satisfy his greed. After venting his anger, he returned to the wine table and was busy with attending to the mundane affairs. After a lot of hard work, I became even more sleepy, and I couldn't help but fall asleep on the chair. After returning, Simon King had a rare rest in Wu Yunyang's room. Next, on the morning of the 13th day of the first lunar month, Simon King felt heavy head and leg pain. Wu Yunyang thought that the spring spirit was coming and asked him to buck up his spirits during the festival. Of course, Simon King had absolutely no doubts about his battle-hardened body at this time. He still strengthened his body and cheered up because Wang Liuer asked his younger brother to bring him a gift, a cut willow of black, glossy green silk is wrapped with 5-color velvet into a concentric knot and tied with two brocade ribbons. It is very delicate. The other item is a 2-mouth mandarin duck and purple gold-covered bag, filled with melons and raspberries. I always feel that Wang Liuer is such a powerful woman. She is good at communicating, conveying feelings, and eloquent, and she can be a low-key person. She coaxes Simon King to do anything. And she also has a lot of money and favors. Look! This time, it's his own black hair, and it's the flesh of a melon that he peeled with his own mouth. The love is conveyed in such detail. Can Simon King not be so happy? How could Simon King resist such a call? So, he pretended to go to see a shop and inquire about business, and then headed to Lion Street when he had time. Here are a few sentences describing the lively scene of the Lantern Festival as it approaches. The lantern market is bustling with carriages and horses, colorful lantern balls, and tourists like ants, making it very lively. Of course, this man will never have only one woman in his heart. Simon King only thinks about Hiki and his wife, Lan Shi, and his lust is burning. But Wang Liuer still accompanied Simon King affectionately for the last time, if they both knew that this was their last madness, and they wondered if Wang Liuer would ever act like this again. When we left Lion Street, the lively lantern market had dispersed. It was also the middle of the night. The clouds were overcast. The moon was hazy, the streets were deserted, and the alleys were full of barking dogs. Simon King was already exhausted. When crossing the bridge, suddenly a black shadow under the bridge pounced on Simon King. Simon King was frightened and quickly drove home like a cloud. His legs were weak when he got off the horse, and he was helped in from the left and right, and went straight to Pan Jinlian's room in front. This dark shadow and the lonely street that has dispersed all exude the charming and decaying atmosphere of impending death. Simon King, who was so drunk, just wanted to have a good sleep at this time. But how could Xiao Pan miss such a good opportunity to accompany him? She always acted recklessly, and she sent Simon King to the first gate of hell. The woman took the wine pot, poured a minute of wine, took 1 pill herself, and there were still 3 pills left. I'm afraid it won't work, and I won't be able to cooperate with you at all. I'll take all the shaku and send it to Simon King's mouth. Readers of Monk Who's Medicine already knew its power, but this time he was actually taken 3 pills at once. Simon King experienced the most painful sexual intercourse in history and passed out. Xiao Pan was also frightened and panicked. Simon King finally regained consciousness and said, "My leader is so sinister. I don't know why. This sentence seems very familiar." It seems that Xiao Pan also said the same thing when he was lying drunk in the grape trellis. Is it retaliation? Here, the author once again quotes the motto poem at the beginning of the book. 28 beauties have a crisp body, with a sword at their waist to kill the foolish man. Although there are no dead heads, secretly the bones of the emperor are withered. This aphoristic poem is popular and sharp, and has been spread with great enthusiasm. In short, women bear the blame for beauty, and men always have some inexplicable sense of superiority and the slightest sense of innocence of the victim. On the 14th day of the first lunar month, Simon King got up to comb his hair. He suddenly felt dizzy and looked ahead to grab his head. You must know that Simon King was in the prime of life. This kind of fainting was undoubtedly a terrible sign. When Wu Yunyang heard about it, she was so frightened that her soul flew into the sky. Outside, the soul is scattered in the sky. This is the accurate reaction of Wu Yunyang's always sensitive intuition. She is the first lady, and only she can be the first to sense the seriousness of major events that can affect the whole body. Wu Yunyang questioned Simon King in detail, and then began to interrogate Xiao Pan. After all, the last stop was in her room, and Xiao Pan would never tell the truth at this time. After Wu Yunyang's series of interrogations of the servants, Wang Liuer was finally confessed, and Mrs. Lin was also confessed. Pan Jinlian grasped at straws to save her life. After scolding Wang Liuer, she scolded Mrs. Lin again and again. She scolded Mrs. Lin harshly and steadily, but she never expected that Wu Yunyang lightly said, "Ms. Wang Sangwaner, you still call him old, adulteress. He said that you have been serving in his house since you were a child." Xiao Pan's self-esteem was crushed to the ground again. She heard this and her face, ears, and neck turned red. She said that she just played at her house when she was a child and did not know Mrs. Lin at all. Wu Yunyang scolded her disdainfully. "Look at that talkative guy. When someone talks to you, you scold him." So Pan Jinlian was so ashamed that she stopped talking. Wu Yunyang deeply disliked Xiao Pan. She subconsciously did not believe Pan Jinlian's various excuses to excuse herself, but there was no evidence for the moment. She used this to severely humiliate Pan Jinlian to suppress her, that evil fire in my heart. On the 15th day of the first lunar month, the Lantern Festival arrived, and this home no longer had the bustle and laughter of the past. Simon King's body began to suffer from organic diseases. The internal yang was swollen due to deficiency of yang. Red scrofula appeared in the inconvenient areas, and even the kidney sac was swollen as big as an eggplant. The urinary tract was like a plow with a knife, once drowned, once in pain. In the end, Simon King had no choice but to invite doctors one after another. First, he was a medical officer, then Dr. Hu and Mr. He's son. They took turns to treat him, but in the end they were ineffective. The person who accelerated his death this time was still Xiao Pan. To such an extent, Simon King still wanted to stay at Xiao Pan's place, so that Xiao Pan once again caused him to die and resuscitate several times. Wu Yunyang's supervisory role was gone. Where is it? On the 16th day of the first lunar month, Wu Yunyang finally woke up and suggested that Simon King move into the upper room. Finally, Master Simon's colleague He Qian who brought Dr. Liu, but after taking the medicine, it got worse, pain all over his body, and he screamed all night. At 5 o'clock, the kidney sac in the inconvenient area ruptured, and a pool of blood flowed out. Simon King unconsciously fell into a coma. At this point, all the doctors were helpless. On the 17th day of the first lunar month, Simon King entered the countdown to his life. Wu Yunyang pinned her last hope on Wu Shengshen, but Wu Shengshen made the final decision. The official was drunk too much. His kidneys were exhausted. Taikai's evil fire gathered in the Sea of Desire, and he was terminally ill and difficult to treat. The White Tiger was at the head, and he was mourned. When the door is set, gods and immortals cannot explain it, and it is difficult to deduce Tai Sui. Creation has been determined, and gods and ghosts cannot change it. You know, this Wu Shangshan had long predicted that Simon King would be vomiting blood and pus when he was 33 years old. However, when the fire is burning and the wealth is overwhelming, who is willing to believe in the curse of fate? If fame and wealth persist, the Han River should also flow northwest. At this moment, Simon King truly realized for the first time that it was time to accept his fate. What is intriguing is the attitude of several wives and concubines towards Mr. Simon when he was on the verge of death. Wu Yunyang burned incense in the courtyard and made a wish. Husband and wife have always shared well and woe, and she was the most sincere. Meng Yulu promised to fight every 7 days. Yulu was a kind-hearted person with a delicate heart. He also prayed sincerely and was worried about his own fate. Li Jiar didn't make a wish. It had nothing to do with him at all. It didn't matter if he died. I just laughed. Pan Jinlian doesn't make any wishes. She doesn't believe in praying to Buddha or God at all. If she is lucky enough to live, she will continue to be happy. If she dies, she will die. But what happened before Simon King's death made me see the fragility and weakness of a powerful figure before his death. He clearly knew that Xiao Pan had killed his only son, that Li Ping'er's death was inseparable from her, and that he might not be unaware of Xiao Pan's facilitating effect on his death this time, but he still couldn't let go of Xiao Pan. Seeing that Yunyang was not here, she held Pan Jinlian's hand with one hand, unable to leave him in her heart, and her eyes filled with tears. He said to Pan Jinlian, "My friend, after I die, your sisters will guard my spirit and never be separated." Pan Jinlian felt overwhelmed with sadness after hearing this, and said, "My brother, I'm afraid people won't tolerate me." It was only at this moment of farewell that the two truly loved each other. Then Wu Yunyang said with deep affection, "My brother, if you have anything to say, just say a few words to the slave, and you and I will become husband and wife." Simon King unconsciously choked up and couldn't cry, so he confessed his last words to Wu Yunyang. "After my death, if you give birth to a boy and a girl, your sisters should stay together and live together. Don't get separated and make others laugh." Then he pointed at Pan Jinlian and said, "Just wait for Liu'er's past affairs." Look! Who is the person on Simon King's heart? Pan Jinlian. What don't people know? But with this sentence of "just take care of him," Xiao Pan was not vicious in his eyes after all. He was just a child who was not familiar with the world. Did the dead Pinger know that his heart was broken? After Wu Yunyang heard this, she couldn't help but cry loudly and grieve endlessly. She was probably heartbroken. She had been so strong all her life, but in the end she lost to Xiao Pan in the man's heart. The biggest wish of this man on the verge of death is that these women can guard this home together and stay together to avoid making people laugh. Should I laugh at his naivety or his pedantry? What would happen if he knew that his women would become ruthless and scattered one by one? Will you blush at today's confession of infatuation? Finally, on the 21st of the first lunar month, at the 5th watch, Zhang Wo burned his body and turned into wind, with a sound like a cow roaring, and he panted for half the night. At the end of the battle, he died, sadly. Simon King, the richest man in King County, suddenly collapsed in just 10 days from the 12th to the 21st of the first lunar month, ending his prosperous but short life suddenly. I remember a common saying, Simon King has too much human touch. Also, his loyalty to his friends, his pity for women, his lust, his love for money, his ups and downs in the world, and his overt and covert experiences in life. It seems that people in the secular world are all more or less. The ground was a little stained, so looking at him, it seemed as if he was looking at every ordinary person among all living beings, so full of flesh and blood, with sound and color. So, why judge? Just reflect on yourself. After he dies, his women will continue to start a new life and a new destination. Who belongs to whom? Finally, I would like to use the beginning of this chapter to express my feelings about this world. I have no regrets about the past, so there is no need to admire fame, wealth, and popularity. Jade halls, golden horses, bamboo fences, and thatched huts are always sad places. A closer look at Chapter 80 of Jin Ping Mei. Who is the successor? Jin Ping Mei has 100 chapters, and the first 79 chapters are all about gathering. About Simon King collecting beauties, amassing wealth, and seeking power. The next 21 chapters are all written loosely. There are two solemn funerals in the book Jin Ping Mei. One is that of Li Pinger and the other is that of Simon King. Funerals are always for the living. When Li Pinger died, Simon King was at the height of his power. His beloved concubine was dead, so there was no reason why he should not come. Guests came and went, and officials came and went. Anyone who had the opportunity to come to Simon's house to show his face and get a piece of filial piety silk came. Pinger's funeral was so lively. When Simon King died, there were also guests and officials. But the number of people attending the funeral was not as dense as that of Li Pinger. In one sentence, the world was in a bleak state. After learning that Simon King was gone, the 10 brothers who had been close friends in the past gathered together to discuss how to provide favors. The embroidery book is written simply, but the word book is much more detailed. The detailed description should be for the Count and his brothers to calculate how much each item on the sacrificial table cost, how much the sacrificial text cost, and how much they could eat at Simon's house. The number of reciprocal gifts must be calculated clearly one by one. After hearing this, all the brothers agreed that although 1 coin was a lot, they could get more benefits. So they happily took out 1 coin to put together a sacrificial table. Every time there is a wedding or funeral, the Chinese people calculate the loss and gain of favor money in this way. But when Erling takes the lead in doing the calculation, he can't help but sigh that this winter is really cold. Not long ago, he was blessed with a son, and Simon King smiled and gave him 50 taels, but one cannot blame Erling harshly. Among the 10 brothers who are in love, Erling saw Simon King being colder and hotter, and seeing him trying to seize Hua Zixu's wife and property. No matter how kind Simon King was to him, he would never feel truly convinced and safe. Now that I see him accompanying Hua Zixu, I can only feel relieved secretly. People are doing it and God is watching. As for the usual intimacy, Simon King was willing to pay for the emotional value and information provided by the Earl, which was an exchange of equal value. For Erling, after Simon King died, his first concern was where would be the next Simon King? Reggie's brother spent money to invite Chui Shukai to write a memorial essay. The novel has never had a filter, but at this time, the author couldn't help but jump out and use the scholar's memorial to satirize Simon King Yitong. Wailing was upright and strong in nature. He was not afraid of the soft and did not surrender to the hard. He always helps people with a little water, always helps people with his energy. He lifts up when he is happy, but falls when he is in trouble. The boy who has been favored is always at his crotch to help. I also stayed in Liuzhou and Jiangtai, and I was rampant in Sichuan. Such a memorial text was read at the funeral in a grand manner. Serious Chinese people, when they really want to play comedy, they are very advanced. Simon King's former sweethearts, Sister Li Gui, Wu Yin'er, Zhang Aiyu and others all came. Wang Liuer also prepared a sacrificial table to see his old lover off. Wu Yunyang regarded her as the main culprit for Simon King's death. When she heard that she was also coming to offer sacrifices, she first cursed. A thief and a slut who raised men and ruined other people's families. Why did she come to offer sacrifices? Wu Yunyang had only felt mediocre before. She had fought Pan Jinlian several times to protect her brother. She felt that she was a woman who never let up her guard at critical moments. She couldn't figure out why Zhang Jupo hated her so much. But once Simon King fell and she wanted to take charge, her stupidity turned into evil. And she could be called a prodigal woman. She scolded Wang Liuer for being extremely vulgar, comparable to Pan Jinlian, and as reckless as Pan Jinlian. How tolerant and well-intentioned she was in hiding Li Pinger's property before, but now she has no success at all. It was Uncle Wu who reminded Wu Yunyang that Wang Liuer is a man with so much capital. How can you wait for people like this? Wu Yunyang finally remembered the stakes and asked Meng Yulu to go out to receive him. Wang Liuer was ignored and ridiculed, and her brother Wang Jing had been driven away by Wu Yunyang long ago. In addition, the second sister Shen was insulted before, So what reason did she have to live a life of flattery to Wu Yunyang? Later, she tried her best to persuade Han Daoguo, took 1,000 taels of silver and left for Tokyo overnight. Wu Yunyang's stupidity went beyond misunderstanding the responsibilities of Pan Jinlian and Wang Liuer. When she was able to get up after confinement, she started to attack Li Ping'er. She moved everything away neatly, scattered her girls, burned Li Ping'er's portrait, and locked her house. Poor Li Ping'er treated her with a low eyebrow and a submissive attitude during her lifetime. Maybe she didn't hate Li Ping'er, but used this to vent her anger towards Simon King. I can finally make the decision. But with such a clean sweep of Li Ping'er's traces, who among the other concubines would not be shocked or chilled? Can we really live a peaceful life with her as a widow? Wu Yunyang's move has already indicated that it is a joke that the sisters are separated. Pan Jinlian was not cold-hearted. It was probably Simon King's instructions when she died that made her think that she had obtained the gold medal for immunity from death, and Wu Yunyang would not do anything to her. She laughed wantonly, seizing the opportunity to flirt with Chen Jingji, or glancing in front of the soul, or teasing behind the curtain. Only after the first 7 days, Pan Jinlian made an appointment with him skillfully. "My son, your mother has made you happy today. Let's go to your room while the eldest sister is behind you." Chen Jingji couldn't wait to open the door first. Pan Jinlian got into his room, and the two of them had a great time on the Kang. Early the next morning, Chen Jingji, still unfinished, asked Pan Jinlian for the key to the warehouse. While Chen Mai went to get the key, Pan Jinlian held out his tongue from the window, and the two of them smacked each other. So sweet and eager, like a young man in love for the first time. The kiss through the window and the incest stimulation between the mother-in-law and the young son-in-law made one's blood boil. I think of Simon King's sincere instructions before his death. "Your sister, keep my spirit, and don't get separated." Within a few days, Pan Jinlian, her favorite, had sex with her youngest son-in-law. When he was alive, he couldn't help his desire at all, but he hoped that after his death, women would be able to hold it back and be devoted to him. Is this a man's ego? Or does he think women are another species? Pan Jinlian's sexy and voluptuous temptation could not be resisted by him when he was alive. How could other men be able to resist it? Perhaps it is the normal desires and normal expectations in Simon King that are in line with the world. Seeing the women he had tried his best to gather during his lifetime to find their own way out, the more he read, the colder he became. It was so cold to the core. Because we have to accept and surrender. This world is such a reality, and desires are so untamable. Everyone is dominated by life and desires and cannot escape. However, we hope that others can tame them and not infringe on us in the slightest. Compared to the 10 brothers who were betrothed by Earl Ying, the sisters in Li Chun Yuan had much more friendship. It is said that married children throw away water, but Li Jiar and her Natal family, Li Chun Yuan, have never been estranged. And Li Chun Yuan does not regard Li Jiar as an outsider. Simon King wants to groom sister Li Gui, so Li Jiar pays her to help her win favor. Li Jiar is bullied by Pan Jinlian, and sister Li Gui tries to retaliate. As soon as Simon King died, the people in Lichen Court began to plan a way out for Li Jiar. First, she didn't have to keep the rules. Second, she stole some money for later use. Third, she found a good home and remarried. After all, brothels are at the bottom of society. They are constantly facing survival crises and despairing of the world's people. Therefore, once something goes wrong, they don't have to worry about so much. Early planning and early termination are the best. You and I, the people in the courtyard, can't maintain such chastity. I'll teach you to secretly teach Li Ming to stay at home and defend the rear if you have something in your hand. How could Li Jiar not listen to this? She and Simon King had no children, were not favored, and had nothing to protect emotionally or rationally. When Li Ming, Wu Hui and other singers came to attend the funeral, Li Jiar joined him. By the time Simon King went to the funeral on May 7th, he had stolen almost everything he could. Li Chun Yuan issued a new instruction: don't just stay at his house. I'll teach you to make a noise and get out. Li Jiar must have shown off on purpose. Pan Jinlian saw her coming into contact with Uncle Wu, and Chen Mai saw her giving something to Li Ming. The matter was brought to Wu Yunyang's side. Wu Yunyang drove away Wu Erju and Li Ming. Li Jiar said, I and Yunyang made a lot of noise, patted Simon Kingling's bed. Cried, howled, and at midnight, they had to do something in the room. Hang yourself. No matter how stupid Wu Yunyang was, she knew she couldn't stay and told her to go back to where she came from. This suited Li Chenyuan's intention. After some wrangling, Li Jiar bid farewell to Yunyang, got on the sedan chair, took the suitcase and cage with her, and went back to Lichen Courtyard. Earl Ying has always been particularly supportive of Li Chenyuan's business. Simon King took over Sister Li Gui, and it was Earl Ying who helped resolve the conflict between Simon King and Sister Li Gui. Now, he showed his true nature as a helper and found a good home for Li Jiar. This man is Zhang Erguan, whose name is Zhang Mode, and he is Zhang Dahu's nephew. This Zhang Dahu, Pan Jinlian was sold to his family as a maid, and was taken over by Zhang Dahu. Then Pan Jinlian was beaten hard by Zhang Dahu's wife, and transferred to Wuhan University. Now, Simon King's woman is in contact with the Zhang family again. What a turn of events! Zhang Erguan didn't listen to the wind and rain, so he took 5 liang and slept with Li Jiar all night. Li Jiar had no real qualities of a brothel in the Simon King family, but that night, Erguan Zhang was obviously very satisfied. And the next day he spent 300 taels of silver to marry Li Jiar as his second wife. After marrying Simon King's woman, how can his power and business be left behind? If he wants to take over, he will take over in an all-round way. Zhang Erguan is very ambitious. Under the help of Count Ying, Erguan Zhang offered 5,000 taels of silver. Count Ying, Li San, and Huang Si borrowed 5,000 taels from Zhu Nixiang, and jointly took over the money and food for the Dongbing Mansion's ancient artifacts. He also collected thousands of taels of gold and silver and went to the Tokyo Privy Council, Prince Zheng, and Lieutenant Zhu Taiwei to ask for the vacancy of Simon King in the penal station. Women, power, and property all come, and naturally they also need Simon King's talents. Earl Ying is always at his side and tells him everything about Simon King's family. What Earl Ying was most enthusiastic about was introducing Pan Jinlian to be both talented and beautiful, who was even better than a singer. The second official Zhang was so excited that he wanted to marry Pan Jinlian. The author was very ashamed of Count Ying and called him a snob who had done unjust things. But Simon King is dead, and the lives of the living will continue. Later, Pan Jinlian committed incest and had an abortion, which made the family uneasy. Which one is more honorable than sending her away in peace? Earl Ying is the smartest person in the book, and he has already seen the future of the Simon family. Simon King had no clan members, so after his death, Wu Yunyang and Chen Jingji had to support the family. What kind of people are these two people? When Simon King just died, the Earl advised Chen Jingji, "You have to be careful about everything at home. If you have something to do, you can't do it yourself. I would like to ask your two uncles for their advice. I shouldn't say it. You are young and your affairs are still in trouble. Not very experienced." One word gives a glimpse into the economy. Before Simon King died, he entrusted Chen Jingji with his funeral affairs and told him to close all businesses. Could it be that he saw that his son-in-law was useless and could not take over his job? In response to the Earl's careful advice, what about Uncle Wu? He didn't act like a brother at all, and even shied away. "I have official business, so I don't have time to spare, and I see his mother is here." Earl Ying persuaded again. "Good uncle? Even though I have a sister-in-law, how do I deal with external affairs? It's my uncle's opinion. Since ancient times, you can't have children without an uncle, and you can't grow without an uncle. A biological uncle can't compare with others." At this time, Earl Ying was completely planning for the Simon family. Unfortunately, his uncle didn't care. His son-in-law was useless, and his wife was even more stupid and untalented. It was hard to imagine what would happen to the Simon King family in the future. At this point, I suddenly miss Simon King's ability and responsibility. He can be the leader who beats women and deceives women, all because these people have to rely on him to have a good life. With their hands raised, can they and the helpers not kneel down to flatter you? It's a pity that Simon King was so lucky that he burned too hard and died young. In the face of luck, the required virtue is temperance. Simon King had no temperance and died early. His successors, Zhang Erguan, Wang Sangguan, and He Qianhu, were trying their best to squeeze in and take Simon King's road. Hegel said that the only lesson humans can learn from history is that humans never learn lessons from history. History is like this, and so is human nature. History is created by the gathering of living and concrete people. The brilliance of the last 20 chapters is that the author uses a more compact dramatic plot to demonstrate this eternal law to mankind. Through the chaos of society and the scattered trees in Simon's family.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.